passionate educationist and the mental health champion, Mrs. Neerja Birla. She is the founder of Empower, a mental health venture, the Aditya Birla World Academy, and the Aditya Birla Integrated School, amongst other ventures. Neerja, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the summit.
Thank you so much, Kumar. Wonderful to be here.
Neerja, you've been working in the mental health space and you're such a vociferous advocate and mental health champion. In addition to the obvious human aspect in terms of loss of quality of life because of mental health issues, there is also now a lot of data about the huge economic loss which is staring at India in the next decade or so because of productivity losses or, in general, because of bad mental health. And where do you see the role of organizations emerging, given that there is, yes, an altruistic motive to help their employees, but also an economic motive now?
Yes, what you're saying is absolutely right. The economic burden on the nation is massive. And one doesn't realize it because a lot of times, when people are low in productivity or are missing days, are not able to really give in their, their full and work to their full capacity, one doesn't realize that it's actually coming from a space of being mentally unwell. So therefore, it goes unnoticed. But if you think about it, the economic burden is massive and there's a huge, huge loss in productivity. And I think organizations therefore have a great role to play, because if at the organizational level, if one can start making mental health literacy more important, mental health awareness more critical, putting in programs on how do you make the workplace more positive, how do you get the people to drop the stigma or at least lessen the stigma, make it a space which is very comfortable for people to come up and speak to you about their issues. And therefore reduce the stigma, and that will help people actually acknowledging that yes, there is an issue, and then they will want to do something about it. At this point in time, a lot of people are either not aware of what is happening to them, so there is lack of awareness, there is low literacy, or if people are aware, the stigma is so high because one feels that the minute they go and talk to their superiors about it, they're going to be pulled down, or they lose their job, or they'll be assigned as somebody who's unfit. So therefore, if we're able to tackle the awareness side of it, increase awareness, increase literacy, and make it a happy workplace, like workplace, positive workplace, I think that'll help. And I also believe that it needs to start top down. It's the managers that really need to, where the awareness needs to set in. So we have a lot of programs. We have this sensitivity training for managers where we actually take them through 3 days of webinars and we make them sensitive to the needs. How do you become sensitive? How do you become less judgmental? How do you make your workplace a better environment and a more mental health friendly environment? So it's very important. And similarly, even if leaders of the organization really believes in this, only then can the change happen. They need to make the environment more conducive for people to come up and speak about it without feeling ashamed about it or without feeling scared that they're going to be deemed as unfit or their jobs being taken away.
That's really important because you're so right. We almost don't have the lexicon, if you will, for good mental health within an organization. Over the years, we've somehow very casually referred to, people's shortcomings in very casual terms about mental health, about weakness, right? And I think your sensitization training or workshop or content can be really helpful in getting people aware that these are things which are unacceptable, right? You cannot keep driving that nail down further to say that okay, this is a sign of weakness or this is a sign of not being there, so to say.
And also sometimes I think what probably also happens is that, say, if the manager or the superiors are not aware that the person could be actually suffering from a mental health issue, you keep driving the person. So you're not meaning it in a bad manner, but you just may not be aware. You just don't have the wherewithal to know it. Right. And so you keep pushing them more and more, not realizing that the other person, it's not that the other person doesn't want to work or doesn't want to perform or is not capable. It's just that he has a brain fever and he can't do it. It's that, and it just needs little bit of tweaking, little bit of medication or therapy or whatever it may be that is required, which can really set the ball rolling for that person. So
Right.
therefore, that sensitivity is very important, and getting mental health literacy at the organization level is extremely important.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, so one is the preventive aspect of it, and then comes the actually counseling and the the psychological treatment part of it. So one is the preventive bit, and then comes the curative bit. So, for example, we have the helpline which we offer to corporates. We even have online counseling sessions. We've just developed a new product called Dose of Happiness, which is DOSE, which stands for the 4 different neurotransmitters. So there's dopamine, there's oxytocin, there's serotonin, and there's endorphin. And these combine. You need these 4 in good quantities in order to feel happy. So we've developed a package where the counselors do different activities so that we're able to get these 4 neurotransmitters or chemicals going in people, which will sort of get them their dose of happiness.
That's
So I think both are very important, the preventive as well as the curative side of it. We also do something which is called a literacy survey, a mental health literacy survey for the employees, actually, to understand that at what level are they. Because again, this is something which is not seen. So one really doesn't know at what level is the understanding. It's so relative, not spoken about. So we do a survey actually to really understand what is the mental health of the organization and of the people, and at what level of understanding are they, and then take them from there on.
That is really great because you said something really important about how it has to come down from the top. And speaking of recent times, the pandemic has also seen senior leaders, organizational heads, who have taken more to preventive health and wellness. Either because of increased awareness or having more time at hand, being at home. And now with organizations depending so much, the future of the organization, of employees, of channel partners, of shareholders, on the decision making of these leaders, on the resilience of the leadership team, right? Do you see a greater requirement, almost a mandatory need, for these leaders to be investing in their preventive sort of health and wellness from a mental health, mental fitness, resilience perspective?
Absolutely, because it's a huge myth that that high achievers or successful people cannot get a mental health condition. That's a
Absolutely.
huge myth actually, and that honestly, mental health doesn't discriminate at all. It can happen to just about anybody, any gender, successful, not successful, rich, poor, nothing. It just does not discriminate. And it's a very well-known fact that high achievers also can have mental health issues. The two can coexist. You can be extremely successful professionally and yet be grappling with a debilitating mental health condition. So they're both ways. One, it goes to show that it can happen to anybody, and it's really nothing to do with the success of an individual. And vice versa, it also goes to show that just because you have a mental health condition doesn't mean that you can be any less successful.
Absolutely.
So it's very important for leaders of the organizations to definitely get in preventive measures to look after their own mental health, because ultimately it will catch up. I mean, we all are human. We all go through our traumas and difficult times in life. And in fact, I feel that decision making itself can be quite arduous, and it can set in a lot of fatigue. Decision fatigue is a very well-known phenomena, right? And so if you're all the time having to take decisions where the buck always stops at you, it definitely takes a toll on you. So I think it's very important to spend that time in your routine, in your day, looking after your mental health, and whatever that may be, whatever works for you. It could be a fitness program, it could be a, something, a hobby that you like to pursue, anything that gives you little relief, takes you away from your routine, kind of result oriented job, and sometimes just move away from it and just do things where you kind of just lose sense of time and just, you're just really in that activity.
Sure, sure. The trajectory, if you will, of mental health discourse in India started from an era where we were just not talking about it. There was no
Hmm.
discourse, there was no narrative, right? And I would say with efforts from individuals such as yourselves and a few others, it's come to a certain extent to the mainstream. So the mainstream media is discussing it. It is no longer as much a taboo as it was, let's say, 5 years ago. Where do you see this trajectory going forward? There are some sections who also talk about it almost becoming cacophonious. On every fora there is, talk about mental health. Sometimes, there are quasi celebrities or influencers who somehow wear the badge sometimes, saying that, oh, I've had a mental health issue. And then there are, reports in social media about people offering help when they are not qualified to do so. So there is a certain casualness which has also come into the conversation, which is also good because at least it becomes a part of conversation. But overall, where do you see this whole trajectory go forward?
So I think it's a great sign. Honestly, like even when we started 5 years ago,
Sure.
there was no talk about it. One didn't, nobody knew really what was mental health. Nobody spoke about it at all. So from there to here, like you're saying now, almost it becoming a part of, almost getting a casual sort of a space to it, which in itself speaks volumes, because if people were not talking about it, it would have not got this status.
True.
Um, and see, everything will always have a flip side to it. You
True.
cannot have a perfect situation. So out of the two, where you're either just not talking about it or being in the situation where there may be certain people who just kind of think it's uh, it's sort of cool to have a mental health issue, which I don't think is fair, because it's not fair to really do that, because people who genuinely suffer really know the angst of it and how debilitating it can be. So
True.
it's not fair if somebody is just acting that they've got a mental health concern. But then you have all kinds of people and you can't really help that. I think what we really need to focus on is that, we've got conversations going, it's getting the attention that it requires. It needs much more attention yet. Here we are talking about these conversations happening more in urban areas, urban centers. You go into the rural areas, in fact, I was just having a conversation with somebody who's in Kochi, and she was saying that the stigma around it is so heavy, is so deep rooted, that they don't even want to go and seek treatment. So, and Kochi is not so rural, right? So, I mean, it's still, so a lot still needs to be done, a lot still needs to be spoken about. And I do believe that it's only going to increase because there is more conversation around it. So obviously awareness is increasing. Infrastructure needs to increase. I'm sure that will also happen, because until infrastructure doesn't increase, we're just, we're not really closing the loop then, because the treatment gap is so huge. It is definitely better. There's no doubt about it. There are more psychiatrists. There is more medical help available. But obviously a lot more needs to be done. More infrastructure, primary healthcare at the rural centers needs to increase. Government needs to pump in lots more. So we're on the path, we're on the right path. Anything, anything that really needs a shift of this kind, a paradigm shift,
Sure.
will need time, will take time. And I think it's only fair to give it that. I mean, see, ultimately, it is a huge cultural thing we're talking about, right? I mean, it's not something, it's been there for generations. It will take a little while, a generation or two actually, for it to really become absolutely normalized.
Right. No, I think you hit the nail on the head. The trajectory has been interesting, and you're so right that in addition to all the physical infrastructure, we need some of this social infrastructure or the intangibles, which people such as yourselves are building out. And that will probably sort of push the needle and, like you said, give us that generational leap in terms
Yeah.
of the way it is spoken about, thought about. As we come to the end of the session, you know, the last 8, 9 months, you have seen disruptions at several levels, right? As a mental health entrepreneur, you're seeing what's happening because of the lockdown and the pandemic. As an educationist, you know, with these schools being shut, online education, and as a parent. So, what are some of your key learnings coming from this sort of period of disruption?
So I think in the space of education, in the two schools that we run, I must say that, see, initially, of course, the disruption, because it took everyone by surprise, we didn't know what had hit us. But to be, to give them full credit, the teams geared up extremely fast. I mean, before we knew it, Zoom classes had already started. Obviously, there were a little bit of teething issues because it was a whole new sort of arena that we were going to be playing in. We didn't know, we had no clue as to what it's going to be like, what the end is going to be like, but we just kind of plunged in head on. And the teams in both the schools, all the teachers really braced up to that. So initially, obviously, there was that little bit of trepidation, there was little fear, uncertainty, but within no time, they obviously got very confident. They knew what they were talking about. They knew how to deliver it. They knew how to make it interesting. And see, the learning curve is always on the rise. The road to improvement is always under construction. So that's an ongoing sort of process where the teachers are constantly evolving and innovating, trying to get the students and the learners as engaged as possible, because that is one of the main disruptions, right? I mean, how do the teachers make the classes as engaging as possible? Sure. Also, naturally, kids are kids, and so a lot of times they don't want to keep their videos on. All those pranks keep happening. It's part of the whole journey. But the teachers keep trying to come up with solutions on how to, keep working around it. So right now, in fact, we've got exams going on at the Aditya Birla World Academy, and they're all happening online. So there will be students that will cheat, obviously. I mean, that is life. But there are a lot of them, most of them who are very honest and truthful. So it's part of it. I think, there has been disruption, no doubt about it. But I think the students have also been very resilient. They've really adapted very well. The teachers have adapted very well. And I think at both the schools, at the integrated school, obviously, because the learners are special, they're specially able, they have special needs. So it makes it that much more difficult, obviously, to get them engaged. So then we have a different program for them where there is much less online teaching. It's more of a hybrid model. It's more blended. They have a lot of classes that, are emailed to them, and then the parents sit with them and make them do it. And then the teachers touch base. So, we've tweaked that according to their needs. At Aditya Birla World Academy, according to grades, it has been tweaked. Some of the grades, some of the classes are optional. Because obviously we also realize that kids can't be on a Zoom facing the screen for so long. So yeah, I think it's really taught us a lot of resilience, and I think for me personally, I feel that it's also taught me that the human spirit is very adaptive. We are thrown into a situation, we don't know how to swim, but within no time we are, we begin to float and we're sort of cruising along. I think even in the space of mental health, again, obviously we've been working, Empower has been working all through, because, we launched the helpline, and then obviously we started getting a lot of calls, and our online sessions have been on. So there also, I think, obviously, initially the counselors found it a little difficult because, even the clients were finding it a little difficult initially. But I think now, again, everyone's got into that routine. And now people are so happy with the online that they don't want to come face to face. Right. So, you get sort of used to that. So, and of course, as a parent, I think I've seen that one of my kids, my daughter Ananya, actually, she's been in LA. So she's been away for a whole year. I went to see her in the middle. So that, of course, has been very disruptive for us. But again, thanks to FaceTime and WhatsApp and just constantly being in touch, that really makes a very big difference. Obviously, it can't replace a physical presence, but it's really, if COVID was to happen, this is the best time for it to have happened, because connectivity wise, you're so well connected. that it really makes a very big difference. And of course, the human interaction is very important. Kids do miss out a lot on that. And now obviously the kids are thinking that this whole year has just kind of been a washout. So I guess they all are dealing with it in their own manner. The kids at school also.
True.
So yes, there has been disruption, but there definitely has been learning as well. We've tried to keep it as normal as possible in the given circumstances. But I mean, one can't replace the face-to-face human interaction. I mean, there's no denying that. So
sure. But lovely speaking to you, Neerja. Thank you so much for joining us, and some very candid views and some great insights. More power to you with your mental health work and your education work. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kumar. It was wonderful to chat with you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.